When I think about the element of water, like water as it pertains to astrology, actually so many things come to mind. I think about it I see the ocean. I see water in that state. Like I see the ocean, but I also see water like in our everyday, you know, in our everyday existence, like the way that we use water, like tap water, you know. Um, and it's so easy for when you think of water like in our daily the way that we apply it, to our lives, it's so easy for people to sort of like misunderstand um water, like, or to misunderstand people that kind of like represent or embody this energy of water, because like when you open the tap and you see water running down, you only see so much water. Or if you see like a glass of water on the table, you only see so much water. If you're taking a bath, you only see so much water. You can sort of control how much water um, you see, or how much water you're exposed to, and so forth. And I think because of that, um, people tend to underestimate the power, the strength, the stamina, especially the emotional stamina that comes with water signs, because people only see very little of it. But then on the other end of the spectrum, like also when you look at it, it's also because of the amount of power that water has, that it has to be contained. Like it has to be controlled. You can only be exposed to that much amount of water, because if you were overexposed to too much water, you would probably drown, you know? Or there'd be floods. We've seen this. So I think when people see very little amounts of it, people tend to underestimate its power, um, and then get overwhelmed or get shocked when large amounts of water emerge, through floods, or people are exposed to the ocean, for example, and they drown, or something, terrible happens. Then people kind of realize, the power of water. Um, but it's incredibly powerful. So when I think of water, I see all of those aspects, but I also see it from the point of view of like the ocean, which is like one of the largest bodies, like surface area, you know, here on Earth and in our existence. And there are entire ecosystems that, that live and thrive, beneath the ocean. Um, and all we see is just the surface. We just see the beautiful waves, we see the beautiful colors that are reflected on the water, we see our own reflections. Isn't that interesting, in water? And that's something that is not possible with the other signs. Like you cannot see your own reflection through fire signs, or through the fire vibration, or the earth vibration, or the air vibration, you know. But through water, you're actually able to see your own reflection. You're able to see the reflection of earth reflected onto water, or fire. If there's a fire burning alongside the water, you're able to see that reflected on the water. So water has this quality that it kind of mirrors, you know, it mirrors us, it mirrors things that are exposed to it. Um, of course, not all water does that, but like, most waters, you're able to see the reflection reflected back. So, and I think that that's interesting, and that's what we see, but we forget the depth. We forget the mysticism that exists and the mystery that exists, once you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into it. Um, and this is what embodies sort of like the signs that fall within this vibration. And that's Cancer, that's Pisces, and that's Scorpio, the water signs. Um, all sort of have this qualities about them, this mysticism, this mystery about them. And they tend to be misunderstood, kind of like what I was just saying earlier about how we can only handle so much water, or people get to decide how they want to use water, you know, either pouring it into a glass of water and referring to it as, oh, this is just a glass of water, or I am just gonna take a shower, or this water here, or this water here. So I think people have gotten so used to the notion of just kind of like seeing water signs or water people as, in a certain kind of way, in a certain kind of lens, um, because of the way that they're adaptable, kind of like the way that the water takes the shape of a glass. Sorry, So, water people, of course, tend to be misunderstood because of that adaptability, that they're able to sort of like merge into any environment that they're in. And a lot of people actually tend to think that like people who have this water vibration or this water energy are like moody or overly emotional and overly sensitive. But a lot of times, really, it's just them kind of reacting to the environment that they're in. Kind of like how you also have water and you pour it onto the floor and it just spreads, because there's no boundary, there's nothing to contain it, and so it just spreads. And if you pour it into a glass, it takes the shape of a glass. If it's like a vase, then it takes the shape of that vase. So it's kind of like that. So do you blame the water for taking the shape of the environment that it's poured in? Or do you blame the fact that the vase has a certain shape and so the water takes that shape? So that's the thing that like water people kind of have to deal with is this being misunderstood, being misrepresented because of their adaptability and their flexibility. Um, and that's something that like all the signs, all the water signs, have that aspect to them. Also, something else about the water is like it's nurturing. Like I was saying, there's like ecosystems that exist, beneath the ocean, that thrive. So it's maternal and it's feminine in that way, and it's caring and it's loving, unconditionally. It has to be selfless because when you have so many things depending on you, you know, it's like a mother figure, like when you have your children depending on you, you just have to sacrifice, you just have to be selfless, because you have been around longer, you are sort of like an old soul. You can kind of see past, past the children or past whoever you're interacting with, and you're like, I can really see that this person needs this more than I do, and so you you self-sacrifice, and so the ocean sort of is that way, like, it just is because, there's like fishes in the water, there's like plants in the water that just have to thrive, so it has to provide that nurturance. That's just what it is. There's no questions about it. Um, and so there is a lot of power with that, with that nurturance, and it just comes so effortlessly and so naturally. It just flows because it just is, you know? So all the water signs have that nurturing ability that people sometimes take, of course, for granted sometimes, and also they get taken advantage, because of that. But that's something that the water signs have that about them. Um, And also something else that's interesting is the intuition and the sensing, that this water signs have, because, the water has to do with our human expression, that has to do with feelings and emotions, and it rules over that domain. It's the domain of water. So people who have a lot of water in their charts, or people who are Cancer or Scorpio or Pisces, definitely would have almost unmatched, intuition and sensitivity, and by sensitivity I mean this ability to like to sense, to sort of like read between the lines, to kind of like, you know, merge into things and and sift into things, because that's what water does. Like if you pour water into earth, it just sinks right into the earth, if you pour it into the carpet or the sofa, it just kind of sinks right into it, so it doesn't do nothing that's on the surface, everything about water is just it's deep, it's intense, it's passionate. Um, so yeah, so all the water signs have this great intuition and this great sensing abilities. Um, and of course, when I start to talk more about all the individual signs, when I start talking about more about Cancer, more about Scorpio, more about Pisces, of course, I will break it down a little bit more, because some might have a little bit higher vibrations than others. But of course, I will get into that in more detail. Um, One other thing also that I was going to mention, or that I should mention about the water element, is that it has a little bit of all the other signs in it. Isn't that interesting though? Because with the other elements, I haven't kind of like observed that a lot, and I haven't studied that a lot, but like with water, there's a little bit of air in it. In that, like, for example, when it's boiled, it gets steamy, and then it evaporates into air. And like literally, it can dissipate, like just disappear into air, you know? And when boiling, it's fiery. It burns, like it can burn you. So it has the element of fire to it, but it also has the element of air to it. And when frozen, it has the element of an earth sign, like that solidness. So I don't know any other elements that can do that. I don't think that fire can be liquefied, or maybe it can, but I don't know. And I don't know if it can be made solid, and I don't know if like earth, elements can be made liquid or can be made, into air. I guess like earth, you can burn it and it can be hot and it can, burn you. Like if you maybe live like in a desert somewhere and it's like scorching heat, you can feel your feet like, being burned by the hot sand. But for example, that would never probably be able to be liquid, in the form of like water. So I think water has a little bit of all the signs, and I think that that's also the one thing that makes it so intuitive and sensing, is that it like, it has the ability to adapt into all these other energies as well. Like it can be fire, it can be air, it can be earth, um, which also makes water signs really, really difficult to like to get to know or to fully comprehend or to fully understand, because you just never know what you're gonna get, type of vibe with water signs, because it could be anything. You could meet a water sign that's a little bit more fiery expression, and you could meet another water sign that's a little bit more stable or like more solid, like an earth, or one that's a little bit airy, like, an Aquarius, for example, or like a Gemini, for example. So, um, yeah, very powerful because of that. And also, water is very holy, when you think about the scripture, water has had so many. Um, Benefits to it that were, like when you think of like baptism, is it baptism when someone is baptized? Sorry for my English. But yeah, water is used in those ceremonies, for example. So there is a holy element to it in that sense. And of course, also, how would it not be if it's nurturing and it's mothering and it has all these things, depending on it? Um, so, yeah, those are some of the things that make, the water element what it is and what makes it unique and what makes it special. And like I was saying earlier, the water element reflect human experience that has to do with feelings and emotions. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave this one here. I think I'll end this here and we'll move on to the next element. But of course, if you guys would like to hear more about the water element, or if you have certain questions about the water element, just leave comments in the section below. And yeah, I'll be sure to take a look at them and address them. And if there's also something that you guys would like to add, what your experience has been with like a water sign, or what you guys think about the water element, like some new ideas, some experiences that you have had, please feel free to share those as well. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and yeah, more content coming through.